In South Korea, the underground oil pipeline system is about 1,200 kilometers long. Crude oil is refined at various refineries and transported to major cities via pipeline every week. There are people who drill into it to siphon oil and make money. They're known as moles. Criminal Straw is interested in this business, so he hires the legendary drill bit to get the job done. However, the one that shows up is Jibsae pretending to be drill bit, so when he tries to work with the same drill the famous mole uses, he screws up and causes a leak. The warehouse ends up exploding, and the men manage to escape alive just in time, but Jibsae gets his legs burnt. A few hours later, the police arrive to investigate the crime scene, and as soon as police officer Man Sik sees the drill that caused the explosion, he is sure this is the work of Drill Bit, who he caught in the past when he used to work in the Intel division. He doesn't tell the higher-ups about this though, because he's lost all credibility, so Man Sik asks his partner Sang-gu to help him do the investigation on their own. Meanwhile, Straw goes to see Dae-han, the mole that sent him the fake driller because the real drill bit is too expensive. Straw beats up Dae-han and demands to see the real genius, so later, Dae-han arranges a meeting with Dol-yi, the actual drill bit. While they discuss the details, Man Sik and Sang-gu arrive to accuse them of being behind the recent explosion and ask them to show their legs, but the lack of scarring puts them in the clear. Afterward, Man Sik tries to convince his boss that the moles will try again, but he's ignored, so instead Man Sik convinces Sang-gu to help him check out all the abandoned buildings in the area. Back to Dol-yi, he meets with Straw to finish the job Jibsae failed to do, and Straw is so pleased by the success that tells Dol-yi about an incoming bigger job from an important backer. A few hours later, Dol-yi has a meeting with this backer, who turns out to be Jian-woo, a rich oil refining company owner. Jian-woo wants him to drill 2 particular dangerous holes and get enough oil to fill the tanks of a factory that will be bulldozed in 50 days, so the job should be done in a month. Dol-yi thinks rushing the job will make it go badly, but Jian-woo convinces him to join by accepting to pay him 1 million. The job is happening in the basement of a hotel that will be closed with the excuse they're full. Dol-yi will be the leader of a team carefully chosen for the task: underground geography mapper Mr. Na, excavator Gun-sab, and welder Jibsae. While the men work, Counter will watch over the reception desk to keep any bystanders away. If the cops ever come by, she'll activate an alarm to warn the team. While they're getting half of the pay in advance, there's a catch: if any of them leave the hotel before the job is done, the contract is void. All their phones are taken away by Straw, who is working as Jian-woo's thug. The team immediately gets to work while complaining about the bad smell caused by the sewer that runs under the hotel. There's tension among them because Dol-yi thinks he's better than everyone there, but at least he listens to Mr. Na's knowledge of the area to dig in the right place. Meanwhile, Jian-woo is dealing with a loan he took with his stocks as collateral. He takes 50 million of company funds to buy low instead of paying what he owes because he's sure there will be an explosion soon that will allow them to sell high. Back to the team, they've made a decent job in making the tunnel before they find their first problem: a deposit rich in lime. Its moisture makes things dangerous, so Mr. Na wants to go around it. Dol-yi thinks there's not enough time for a new route, so they should just double the support and push forward. An argument ensues, so Gun-sab tries to calm everyone down by explaining they can zigzag the beams for perfect support. While trying to demonstrate, he accidentally cuts a wire and hits Jibsae, who now wants to start a fight. Dol-yi hits him and insults him, then raises Jibsae's pants to see the scarring and confirm he's the lowlife that tried to impersonate him. Feeling like he's won the argument, Dol-yi sends them all back to work. Mr. Na pauses to take some pills and Gun-sab asks him to share, but Mr. Na refuses because they're very expensive. After some more digging, they find a rock wall at the end of the tunnel. It's not impossible to break, but doing so would make lots of suspicious noises, so Dol-yi tells Jibsae to get noisy in the karaoke room to cover it up. Meanwhile, Man Sik and Sang-gu are checking out all the abandoned buildings they can find. Man Sik finds the place where Dol-yi did the drilling for Straw, and Sang-gu goes to check the hotel, getting surprised when he finds Counter because this building was supposed to be empty. Counter explains they reopened recently while pressing the alarm, but because of the broken wire, the team doesn't get the warning. She can't stop a cop from just looking around without raising suspicion, so she waits for Sang-gu to go down the corridor to contact the team through the walkie-talkies. As the men begin to hide their work, Jibsae distracts Sang-gu long enough with his singing that by the time the officer makes it to the basement, the team has covered the hole and is pretending to do sewer work. Sang-gu thinks he's seen Dol-yi before, so he pretends he's been to the station a few times to pick up Mr. Na when he got drunk. Not finding anything of interest, Sang-gu leaves, and Counter immediately goes down to fix the alarm wires. However, something goes wrong and explodes, causing Counter and Gun-sab to get trapped in the tunnel. Believing them to be dead, Jibsae wants to take the chance to get their advance money and escape, and Dol-yi wants to quit too because they've exposed a gas pipe. However, Mr. Na doesn't want to give up and starts digging in case their co-workers are alive. This proves to be a good idea because Counter and Gun-sab are indeed alive and digging as well, so among the 3 of them, they manage to make a hole to escape. In the meantime, Man Sik has called backup to show them what he's found. His boss is quite impressed and finally accepts to send his men to scan the area and find the moles. Sometime later, Dol Yi hears the alarm and finds Jibsei trying to run away with his money. Dol Yi catches him and begins kicking him for almost getting everyone in trouble, and Gunsab joins the beating, but Mr. Na stops them from going too far. Jibsei explains he has a sick son that needs the money for his treatment, so Mr. Na tries to convince Dol Yi to make an exception, but that's when Dol Yi realizes something. He goes to see Counter and confirms she was the one that rang the alarm because there are cameras that keep an eye on everyone's moves. Part of her job is also to let their boss know if anyone breaks the rules. Speaking of the devil, Jian Wu shows up with Straw and his thugs to warn the team of the contract. Since nobody escaped in the end, he accepts to give them a second chance, but now they have 10 days to finish the job if they want to keep their lives. Afterward, the thugs torture Jibsei for trying to escape, and Jian Wu only lets him go after he accepts a deal. Jibsei is given a secret phone, and he must inform Jian Wu of everything that happens while they work. If he does well, he'll be paid extra 100,000. The team goes back to work, and Mr. Na keeps taking his pills. Since the others keep bothering him to share, he confesses they're for cancer. Meanwhile, the police look for them using metal detectors, and when they finally get a response, they begin digging with an excavator. Counter sees all this on the security cameras and rings the alarm, so the team immediately starts taking out all the things from the tunnel. Dol Yi goes back to pick up a few metal things they forgot and is hit by a gas leak caused by the cops digging, cracking his ribs as he falls unconscious. Mr. Na refuses to leave him behind and puts on a mask to rescue him while Counter checks on the police, who are now leaving because they've realized they're messing with the gas pipes. Later, Mr. Na shares one of his painkillers with Dol Yi and asks for a favor. He wants to go to the hospital to check on his wife, who is having surgery today and it needs to be paid for. Counter and Dol Yi both refuse to risk the contract, but later in the evening, Dol Yi changes his mind. He takes his watch off and begins hammering the basement floor to access the sewers and help Mr. Na reach the hospital in secret. Jibsei finds them and calls them out for their double standards, so Dol Yi explains he can't compare himself to the last wish of a dying man. Accepting this excuse, Jibsei decides to go with them so he can ask a doctor to see his burned leg. Counter also sees this escape on the security cameras, but instead of warning Jian Wu, she plays old recordings on loop. This trick seems to work because Jian Wu doesn't suspect anything when he checks the footage from his tablet, but Jibsei ruins things by texting him to let him know what's going on. Before Jian Wu can leave for the hotel though, he's visited by a loan shark that reminds him he needs to pay or his life will be in danger. Jian Wu simply answers by repeatedly hitting the man's head against the window. Back to the trio, they make it to the sewers, and Mr. Na is surprised to find the old USA Army sewer, which is full of abandoned utility pipes. Eventually, they find a manhole and get out, but by the time they make it to the hospital it's too late. Mr. Na's wife is already dead. Meanwhile, a local woman calls the police because someone has been tossing construction trash in her garden, and Sang-gu recognizes it as pieces of the hotel floor. Man Sik can't believe his partner believed the sewer excuse and gets ready to investigate. At the hospital, Jibsei decides to stay to get his leg checked while Dol Yi and Mr. Na go back to the hotel. Unfortunately, Jian Wu, Straw, and the thugs are waiting for them, and they've already captured Counter and Gunsab. Mr. Na asks for mercy by explaining his wife's situation, but Jian Wu doesn't listen and kicks Mr. Na. Dol Yi refuses to work with him any longer, but when he tries to leave, Jian Wu threatens him with hurting his mother. The team has no choice but to go back to digging under Straw's supervision, and this time, Counter is sent to work with them as punishment. Straw makes them work too hard without a break and soon Mr. Na is too sick to keep going, but when Dol Yi tries to defend him, Straw gets angry and a fight ensues. The team wins and tries to leave to take Mr. Na to the hospital, but on their way out, Straw's men arrive to stop them. Dol Yi thinks quickly and grabs a gas tank and a welding machine to create a flame, getting the thugs to stay away from them. Unfortunately, Jian Wu also arrives and he's armed. Mr. Na tries to jump on him to get the rifle, and in the struggle, an accidental shot kills him. Next, Jian Wu shoots Gunsab on the shoulder as a warning, and when Dol Yi tries to attack him too, he gets shot as well. At that moment, Man Sik and Sang-gu arrive at the hotel, activating the alarm, so Jian Wu and his men get away before they're caught. Once they're gone, Dol Yi opens his eyes, revealing the bullet hit the watch in his pocket instead of his body. Between him and Counter, they help Gunsab up and escape together through the sewers. While waiting for backup, Man Sik finds the drill and is now more than ever sure that Drill Bit is involved. The trio makes it to Dae Han's place, who has already sent Dol Yi's mother to a safe hideout. Counter explains that Jian Wu is doing all this to pay a loan shark right before he calls the team to threaten them again if they don't finish the job. Later, he calls Jibsei at the hospital to remind him to keep on passing information and warn him about the cops. It's too late though, the officers have reached the hospital. Jibsei gets to escape, thanks to Dol Yi, who shows up to stop him from snitching on them and makes him rejoin the team to get revenge on Jian Wu. Now with the help of Dae Han and his metal detector, Dole makes a plan using the utility pipes Mr. Na had told them about to redirect the oil. First, Kunter and Dole meet with Jian-Wu to offer the oil in exchange for 5 million, and once they get Jian-Wu's okay, they begin to work. They make a hole on the ground that Daehan covers with a container, and Counter installs cameras on the sewer corridors while the men do the drilling. Jibsei takes a break as an excuse to meet with Straw and tell him what's going on. Not trusting him, Dole follows him and sees him betraying the team, but he also discovers something bigger. Man-Sik and Sang-gu are in the area because they've been following their phone signals. In order to distract the cops, Dole runs into the woods to get them to chase him, getting hit by a rock in the process, while Jibsei goes back to the pipeline and installs a camera for Jian-Wu to spy on them. After losing the officers, Dole goes back to the team and gets ready to finally redirect the oil. Counter sees the cops show up in the sewers, but there's no time to stop the drilling if they want to stay unnoticed by the oil company that keeps an eye on the pipe pressure. The team decides to go for Plan B, which consists of Gunsab and Daehan drilling a random wall for the cops to see them and chase them out. The drilling goes well, but Dole is in too much pain to keep working, so he guides Jibsei to do the last step and finish the job together. Dole opens the valve to send some oil to the tanks at the factory, where Jian-Wu has gathered all his potential buyers. He opens a tap too and confirms the oil is there, so Dole closes the valve and tells him on the phone he'll get access to the rest after getting paid. Meanwhile, the cops' chase ends badly and Sang-gu is sent to the hospital with a broken leg. However, Man-Sik refuses to give up because someone sends him a picture of the new drilling site. While Dole gets ready to receive Jian-Wu, Jibsei betrays them again and opens the valves. Dole catches him just in time and beats him up before tearing off the secret camera. Counter, Gunsab, and Daehan also come back, and together they show Jibsei that Mr. Na had left his money for his son to make him feel shame for his betrayal. After tying Jibsei up, Dole meets with Jian-Wu and shows him how to use the valves. However, instead of paying them, Jian-Wu calls his men to beat them up and get the oil for free. Jibsei escapes from his ropes and helps Dole beat up the men before he runs away. On the surface, the other thugs enter the container at the same time, so Daehan uses a forklift to tip the container over, allowing the team to leave the sewers and find the money. Dole stays a little longer in the sewers, taking advantage of the rifle he's retrieved from one of the unconscious thugs to threaten Jian-Wu. At that moment, they're found by Man-Sik, so Dole distracts him by throwing the rifle at him and telling him to arrest Jian-Wu before running away too. Unfortunately, when he joins his team, it's too late. Straw and his men have captured them all. The thugs hit Dole too before taking him and the rest of the group to the pipe room, where they discover Man-Sik has also been caught. Jian-Wu opens the valves to fill his tanks, then installs a bomb as he explains his plan. There are bombs on the oil reservoir behind the water tanks too. When he detonates them all, the pipeline will be busted and the country's main oil reservoir will be out of commission, so Jian-Wu's company will be the only sellers in the market. Such a huge explosion will also kill hundreds of people, but Jian-Wu doesn't care as long as it gives him money, and it'll look like it's the fault of a mole heist gone wrong. Desperate to escape, Dole makes the team kick over the welding machine, and with the help of Counter's lighter, they start a fire that burns Dole's back but also burns the rope. Once he's free, Dole grabs the bomb and throws it in one of the empty utility corridors before he jumps in the sewer water so the explosion doesn't reach him. Jian-Wu detonates the bombs at the tanks too, both to carry on his plan and kill Straw and his men so they don't snitch on him, but the explosion isn't as big as he expects. In fact, the tanks only release water. It turns out that while everyone was fighting, Jibsei changed the valves and sent wastewater to the tanks instead of oil. The team and Man-Sik leave the sewers, and the officer immediately calls for backup while they watch the arrival of Jian-Wu and the thugs, who want revenge. Another fight ensues, and they use anything available to defend themselves, from the forklift to an oil hose. Dole beats up Jian-Wu and intends to kill him, but Man-Sik stops him from becoming a murderer instead of just a thief. Man-Sik's backup arrives then and everyone gets arrested. 3 years later, the team has been freed on probation and is working in a shop of their own. However, when Man-Sik comes to visit them, he finds them in the basement drilling a wall and doesn't believe them when they say they're doing sewer work, so a new argument starts like the old days. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.